Greetings again everyone, and here's something interesting. Zeiss are back, and with a brand new manual focus Otus series lens. Here we have the new Otus ML 50mm f1.4. It's a full frame lens available on Sony E, Canon RF and Nikon Z mounts, and it costs $2,500 or £2,000 here in the UK. I'd like to thank Zeiss very much for loaning me this lens for testing, but as usual this is an independent review and they've had no input into the video or expectations or anything else like that. The original Zeiss Otus 55mm lens was a manual focus behemoth for digital SLR cameras from 2013, which cost an eye-watering $4,000, and after releasing a few more similarly priced lenses in the Otus series, Zeiss stopped producing camera lenses altogether. So it seems like they're making a fresh start with this new Otus lens for mirrorless camera systems at half the price and half the size and weight, making it a much more attractive proposition. A smaller size is often bad news for image quality though. Well, we'll see what this thing can do in a minute. Firstly though, build quality, and one thing you can always say about Zeiss's manual focus lenses is that they look and feel absolutely amazing. This is something many Zeiss fans are happy to pay for. The lens is tough, solid and metallic with a beautiful finish to it and bright yellow, properly engraved markings. Oh, and weather sealing too, something inexplicably missing on the old 55mm Otus lens. Here's the manual aperture ring, which turns with gentle clicks every third of an f-stop. Camera controlled aperture is not possible with this lens, but your aperture setting is reported back to the camera, and the iris mechanism has 10 blades to it. Gone now is the rubber manual focus ring of the old Otus lenses, to be replaced by a metallic focus ring. I hate to say it, but that is for the best, as those rubber rings picked up an annoying amount of dust. As you'd expect, that focus ring turns incredibly smoothly and a very long way for easy, precise manual focusing at f1.4. It reports back to the camera when it's being turned too, so it can go into focus peaking mode if you set that up in your camera's menu. Here you can see that the lens does suffer from focus breathing though, zooming in as you focus more closely to your subject. The lens's front filter size is 67mm wide, and it comes with an attractively machined metal lens hood, which is flocked on the inside and clicks positively onto the front. Overall, you're getting the build quality you expect from a Zeiss lens here, and the precise focus ring makes it easier than you might expect to manually focus. Alright, let's look at image quality. We'll start on a full frame camera, my Sony a7R III, with its 42 megapixel sensor. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. At f1.4, in the middle of the image, we are seeing great sharpness and very good contrast. There's also a hint of magenta colour fringing though. Stop down to f2 though, and the image becomes razor sharp with a very high contrast. Let's open back up to f1.4 then, and look over into the image corners. Good news here, they're looking very sharp too, with very good contrast. They almost look better than the middle. Stop down to f2 for more brightness in those corners, but it's at f2.8 then the image is razor sharp here. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where a touch of softness emerges due to diffraction. Overall, this is obviously a very sharp camera lens even from the brightest apertures with good contrast, although I was hoping for just slightly better resolution at f1.4. For example, the less expensive Sony G Master 50mm f1.4 is actually a little sharper than this, but this is about the same sharpness as the old Otus 55mm lens, which was twice the size and weight, so that's an achievement for Zeiss. Okay, let's see how the lens performs on a 24 megapixel aps-c camera. Sharpness and contrast are very good at f1.4, but that colour fringing is magnified by the more challenging aps-c sensor. However, again, stop down to f2 and sharpness and contrast become perfect. Alright, let's open back up to f1.4 and look over in the corners. There's a slight bit of softness right in the edges there, but they're looking very good nonetheless. At f2, those corners are razor sharp. So, on an aps-c camera, I was expecting just a little more sharpness for the price you're paying here at f1.4. This is clearly a lens that's been designed primarily for full frame camera sensors, which kind of makes sense at its price point. Okay, let's turn off in-camera corrections and take a look at distortion and vignetting. The lens projects just a touch of pincushion distortion here, and at f1.4, vignetting is quite high. Stop down to f2 or f2.8 to see those corners brighten up. The lens can focus down to 50 centimeters, so that's slightly further than normal for a 50mm optic. However, the good news is that image quality close-up is just as good as it was at normal distances, well, perhaps with a little extra purple fringing though. Here's f2 and f2.8, where we see perfect sharpness close-up. This is a little advantage the Zeiss lens has over the Sony G Master lens that I mentioned previously, which was very soft close-up. Next, work against bright lights. Very good, almost no flaring to be seen. Something I noticed during this test, by the way, is that the lens seems to have excellent light transmission. I needed a slightly lower ISO setting than normal for this test for an f1.4 lens. Let's take a look for coma and sun stars then. Coma is very low here at f1.4, but there is a little green smearing to be seen on the white roof of that building, which sticks around until f2.8. At f4 it's finally gone though. If we move the camera over a little, we can see a very nice sun star emerging at f4 too. At f5.6 down to f11 or f16, those sun stars get nice and strong. Next, bokeh. The lens can handle itself pretty well here, even difficult out of focus backgrounds are rendered quite attractively. We get the usual cat's eye shape to specular highlights in the image corners, but the lens would have to be enormously big to avoid that kind of thing. The only issue that I noted was that very strong specular highlights can show some outlining here, just a little. And finally, related to bokeh, let's check out longitudinal chromatic aberration. Here we stumble across the only really disappointing thing about this lens. It's quite strong at f1.4 and even still there at f2. At f2.8 though it's mostly gone, and at f4 finally totally gone. Overall, well, it's a shame to end on a bum note there, because really, even taking into consideration the lens's extremely high price, I actually think it does make a lot of sense, and that Zeiss have played this one quite nicely. They haven't tried to make the sharpest 50mm f1.4 lens in the universe, although undoubtedly this thing is very sharp. They have tried to make the sharpest, highest quality 50mm f1.4 lens that is still a reasonable size, and they almost did it. Its main competitor, the Sony FE 50mm f1.4 G Master, is a bit sharper than this Zeiss lens when shooting at normal distances, although the Zeiss lens comes out way ahead when shooting at closer distances, and they both suffer from longitudinal chromatic aberration. Ultimately, the majority of people on a high budget will gravitate towards the G Master lens, I think, with its lower price and autofocus and other features for video making, but anyone who wants the best possible build quality and who value a tactile manual focus experience, or anyone who wants to do a lot more close-up shooting with their 50mm lens, will be tempted by this Zeiss optic. Whatever its price happens to be, it's admittedly a beautiful piece of equipment and a step in the right direction for its company. So if you are on a large budget and you want the specific experience this lens can offer you, sure, I still recommend it. Okay, nice to see that Zeiss are back in the game. Thanks for watching everyone. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my channel where you can find playlists for the camera equipment you are looking for. And as usual, a special thanks to my Patreon supporters and channel members who've helped to keep this channel trucking on sponsorship free for absolutely years now. Supporters get all kinds of extra bonus content and early access to reviews, so check it out in the description below. And ciao for now.